Trebell Harp, I'd like to have you talk a little bit more about this word we have been using, and that is hope. How did that move into what you then did as the executive director of the Northeast Ohio Alliance for Hope? Because I want to then have you tell us what were the challenges. But if you could lead in talking about hope, that's a great place to begin.
I think hope is a great word. The substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Hope is used in a lot of different ways. One of the things I think that East Cleveland needed at that time, that I needed at that time, was hope. Hope that we can change like the very fabric of the place that we're at, that we don't have to move to a different place to make it a better place, that we can make this better. That we ourselves can be change agents and make this a better place. But I guess before that can happen, you have to believe that. You got to have some hope. And one of the things, I guess, one of the challenges and I could just use this analogy. Hope it doesn't take too long. So when I was a machinist, and one of the things that became kind of like I guess sort of routine for me was, I was in a business of manipulating metal. I'd programmed CNC machines to cut particular parts and everything. And if you have a certain type of metal, then as long as you have the same type of conditions, then the way you work that metal is always the same. And everything with people is much different than that. It's much more exciting, but at the same time, it's much more challenging. But understanding how to move people into for them to understand that they have power within themselves to change the way where they live at, who they are, and like to change the environment around them. And so that was something like that was really big. And so when I first started with NOAA, we did a listening campaign in the community. And one of the things, part of the organizing process is you got to begin where people are at and everything. And so we begin to like hear what the residents were saying are some of the issues that that bothered them the most in the community that they wanted to work on. And of course, that was abandoned and vacant properties. And so when you talk about that problem, abandoned vacant property, I guess at that time roughly like 20% of the housing stock in East Cleveland was abandoned and vacant. I experienced that when I moved back into East Cleveland. Yes. Mm-hmm. That's such a big thing. Nobody really thinks that anything can be done about that. And so we began to like do research around there. And that's how we did the first campaign that we had in the community of East Cleveland with the residents around the Cuyahoga County Land Bank at that time. And so what we had to do was, at that time, East Cleveland was sending back a lot of money. It was the prior administration from this administration. They were sending back a lot of money to the state and to the federal government, that type of stuff. We didn't really have a good reputation as far as our community development department. Just a lot of bad things happening. And around that time, NSP, Neighborhood Stabilization Program dollars, which is part of like the stimulus that Barack had let down to municipalities to help stabilize the housing stock. That was it being entered in the community. But there was this thing called the Cuyahoga County Land Bank.
Yes, talk about that. I don't know
it was Jim Wakakis was like a real our former treasurer. He was a real champion for that.
Yes.
And he got this model from Flint, Michigan, basically to form this nonprofit entity that sort of like function like a CDC, a Community Development Corporation. But their goal was to help municipalities stabilize their housing stock. And I guess the reason why their self-interest is in that is because when you have so many abandoned vacant properties, then the county taxes, the county really can't tax properties that are not being occupied, that type of thing. So it's in the self-interest to do something with these properties and help cities do things with these properties in order to be able to raise up the housing market and that type of stuff.
I see the motivation.
And so long story short, they had a lot of resources that they can avail to East Cleveland, to the administrations, to the administration to actually help us like stabilize our housing stock. They had like resources as far as like being able to acquire, do a land acquisition, that type of stuff, resources to be able to help us demolish properties, resources to help us to facilitate the NSP dollars that we get in order to demolish properties, that kind of thing. And so we looked at that and we thought that was a really good idea for the community, but unfortunately the administration at that particular time did not. And so we launched a campaign around that and everything. Now people going into this thing didn't really believe at first that anything could be like gathered out of this, they didn't believe that anything really would happen out of this campaign, but really like energizing people and pushing them to do things that they never thought they could do, never thought they would do, that type of thing. We had residents, we had leaders going out like signing. First we had invited the whole Cuyahoga County Land Bank to East Cleveland.
How I want to know how you began your organization. your organizational plan.
Right. So pretty much we began with the residents. We found out where they were at. We began to look at the different resources that we could bring into the community to actually deal with that. We identified the Cuyahoga County Land Bank as being like a real key resource because of like what we've been hearing about it and that type of thing. So we wanted East Cleveland to have a more intimate relationship with the Cuyahoga County Land Bank, which will result like in the sign of a memorandum of understanding (MOU). And so what we did was we actually went to and tried to figure out why there wasn't East Cleveland, and it was like, well, at that time that particular mayor he wasn't interested, and so what we felt was that the community needed to hear what we were forfeiting, and so we invited the land bank staff to come to a community meeting where it was packed, and they pretty much talked about all the things that the land bank could do and the benefit that it could have, and then out of that meeting it came out that pretty much the people that we need to convince, because we had all of city council at that particular meeting, and they said they were all like for it, but the person that we had to convince was the mayor at that time, Eric Brewer. And so, long story short, what we did was, we definitely made that known to him that that's the way we wanted. He didn't see the feasibility for it, so we actually went and began to canvass and talk to community residents, talk to neighbors and everything about like their issues in the community, and the resources that the Cuyahoga County Land Bank could bring in. We door knocked, we circulated petitions, and really centralized that issue in the community, so it became like an issue. And long story short, we hosted a candidates forum where we centralized this issue, and the residents pretty much wanted to see it. And I guess quite frankly, the candidate that supported our issue won 2-1 over the candidate who didn't. And so in February, I guess I can't remember the exact, February 27th was the day after Gary Norton got signed in. Pretty much that we hosted a meeting, and it was him and the president of the Cuyahoga County Land Bank and City Council and other people and community residents came in on a blizzard. It was well attended, and signed a memorandum of understanding, which really like marked a turning point for East Cleveland. Now you have like properties coming down. We got the NSP dollars and everything. They've been helping to actually like through the process of like all this land acquisition and figuring out helping with like land use and that type of thing for the city and everything. And I think that help has been invaluable. And so that's one of the things I think when residents, after that happened, we actually took residents on a bus to actually select homes, some of the first homes to get knocked down. And I tell you, they picked homes around school buildings and all that kind of stuff, and they're really excited about that. And that right there shows that it's worth having hope, because we actually did something that nobody else thought that we could do, and that type of thing. So that's pretty much where we're at right now. So you ask, why does hope mean so much in the Northeast Ohio Alliance for Hope? With community organizing, that's what we're in the nature of doing. We're in the nature of organizing people and pushing to the point where those things that they thought they could not change in their society or their environment, we show them that they can. And not only that, but they have the power within themselves to do that. They can be active participants in their own deliverance.
Yes. That is a very, that is a marvelous example of how hope maneuvered and presented in the way you did.
Yeah.
You won.
Yeah.
You won.
Yeah, we won.
Hope prevailed.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask you, what about any connections with Case Western Reserve University as far as what you have been doing or in the future? I know that there's some activity going on. Yeah. And have you encountered those kinds of connections?
One relationship that I'm very excited and like really engaging is because one of NOAA's goals is to build a neighborhood association in the community of East Cleveland that really like excites residents to get involved with themselves, with their neighbors, civically involved, and not only that, but to begin to really vision about East Cleveland and where it would be 20 or 30 years from now. And I think part of that process is to really like just to understand like the history of like how East Cleveland became what it is. Because I think if you don't really know your history, then it's really hard to like identify this type of steps that you need to take in order to make things better. And so with the Social Justice Institute, directed by Dr. Rhonda Williams. Yes. She has a specialty around oral narratives or oral histories and everything to really bring out those type of things. And not only that, but I think a partnership with the Social Justice Institute can really like bring out like, I guess the racial and social economic like disparities that we see in our communities and why they are the way they are. So people can really understand that there's systems set up that actually perpetuate the type of things that happens in communities like East Cleveland. And with that knowledge being known, it would be very easy then for us to really develop a strategy to like really move residents into that visioning process, to move residents into relationships with other neighborhoods around East Cleveland and that type of thing. And so, I mean, so that's one relationship that I'm definitely definitely excited about.
I'm very familiar with that, and I'm delighted that you pointed it out. Would you talk about the Huron Road Hospital? Can you give us a progress report about what's happening there?
So I'm sure Asia had pretty much at the last segment. I'm sure she gave you a lot of facts and details. But the bottom line is this: Huron Hospital, which is owned by Cleveland Clinic, wants to move out a trauma center.
Yes.
A level 2 trauma center out of that hospital. And the nearest one is at Som Center Road in Euclid, or Som Center in Mayfield, I think.
Right.
And I guess the way that would affect not only East Cleveland, but like neighborhoods all around East Cleveland, east side of Cleveland, Cleveland Heights, Shaker, all those suburbs around there, Glenville area, Collinwood area, is pretty much it'll prolong the amount of time that if someone experienced a trauma, such as a penetrating wound or stroke or something like that, that it would increase the time that they will have to be able to like get an ambulance to their house and to the operating table and everything, which is going to cost lives. And ultimately, I think that taking that trauma center out will also one of the things they said is that the inpatients for the trauma center pretty much represents about like maybe 15% of the inpatients that the hospital takes. And I think that, I'm just speculating, I think that might be a move in order to like get rid of the hospital, which would be tragic for the community of East Cleveland. And so what we're fighting to do is for them to keep that hospital there, but not only that, but do the same type of investments and capital improvements that they do at the other hospitals that they've had. Yes, there is a $35 million community health center that they've put in East Cleveland. But at the same time, we have a hospital that has not been invested in way other hospitals have. I mean, the type of investments that, for instance, for Hillcrest, $162 million of investments and capital improvements and that type of thing. For Huron Hospital, we don't see that same type of investment in the community. And the thing is, I think is very key, even in the community of East Cleveland, because that's where like you do have like a lot of your underinsured people or people that have maybe a lack of access to health care and that type of thing. But ultimately, around in that area, unfortunately, is like where trauma happens. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to fight to get them to see that the importance of keeping that hospital there. And not only that, but I'd be definitely interested in seeing like a 5 or 10 year plan of like what they plan to do with the hospital in general.
Mm-hmm. And how are you going about what you're doing? I mean, the story of what you did in terms of housing is a very dramatic one and a good outcome. How do you approach this particular project of what you just mentioned in terms of Huron Road Hospital? How do you do that?
Well, I think the key is to organize as many people who feel the same way that we do around this issue. And not only that, but getting the word out that it affects everyone. It affects everyone. It affects people in Cleveland Heights. It affects people in the east side of Cleveland. It affects everywhere. And so the key is to get all these groups, all these entities, all these people around the same table, and so that we can strategically come out with a campaign strategy that will actually like really lead to something that shows like a real unified front that we really care about this trauma center being there. And hopefully that would be enough to convince the Cleveland Clinic that this is something that they should not do.
Mm-hmm. So you're very involved with it. I mean, Noah's very involved with that.
Yes.
Well, you seem to have community organizing as a strength.
Yeah.
That's yours.
Yes.
That is your strength.
Yes.
And the way you're implementing it, what else are you looking at doing?
So I guess in the visioning for the organization, I mean, I definitely think that there never can be too much organizing going on. I think that I mean my goals, I guess, for Cleveland, for I guess Cuyahoga County, is to really drive like a really strong organizing movement in this community, because there's a lot of disparity. There's a lot of things that we have. I mean, right now, I mean, just today, gas prices went up 40 cents from the day before.
Yes.
There's not many jobs here, that type of thing. There's a lot of things that we need to be vigilant about, thinking about, and everything. And so what I would like to do is be able to grow the base that we're doing in East Cleveland, as well as like the congregations that we have all around Cleveland and some of the suburbs, and really start to really think and vision about like how do we like expand that organizing out, and how do we like build our capacity so that we can get in other neighborhoods and really like show people that hope that we talked about before, show people that they can be active participants in their own deliverance. We don't have to take things for the way that they are right now. We actually can be change agents and actually change our environments. And so in doing that, my hope is within 5 years to have organizers in all parts of Cleveland, all parts of Cuyahoga County, doing the great work of community organizing and pushing people to like reach their potential.
Tarbell Harp, would you please, for our listening audience, give us some information? If they want to become involved, what should they do?
If you want to help, if you want to become involved, you can call me. You can call our office at area code 216-834-2324. That's 216-834-2324. Or you can also email me personally at tharp@noahorganizing.org. That's THARP at noahorganizing.org.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much for your story, first of all, and then what it has meant to the community that you do care about so deeply, and the possibility for further growth. And under your leadership, I'm sure that it's going to happen. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. Thank you so much.